Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo. They tell you what they know. Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo. The podcast that you know. Deuce and Mo.
Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo. They tell you what they know.
Do it for Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo. Hey, do it for Deuce and Mo. When it comes to the Kings, it's my favorite show. Do it for Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo. Hey, do it for Deuce and Mo. When it comes to the Kings, big hopes and dreams as we cover our kings. Never cover the kingdom, but we loving our kings. And we covered your prayers as we doing our thing. Big Deuce with the par, Lil Mo on the screen. Solo or together, still do it for team. Never switch up for $1 or revenue stream. So we always got each other, balance out the beam. Deuce and Mo, and that's the end of the theme song.
Do it for Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo.
We are live!
When it comes to the Kings, that's my favorite show.
Happy Tuesday, May 3rd, or as we like to call it, day 22 of the Kings coaching search. How is everybody doing today on a Tuesday?
Did you really count the days?
What up, Deuce?
Yes. Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, Morgan.
Hi.
I'm rooting for
We're
you.
rooting for you. Oh, what is this?
Let's go, Kane.
So good to be live. Appreciate you guys joining us as we are getting ready to start the podcast. What's up, JG? Jackie, our guy E-Biz is here. Leezy, listening to you guys at the gym, drinking Revitalite. Also, shout out to King Spain, who's watching us live in Barcelona. That's how you say it there. As someone who's been to Spain.
Have you really?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, 2006, baby.
I thought you went
Barcelona.
to like... Okay.
5 countries, 21 days. You want to break it down? Let's do it.
No, I don't.
One. London. I went to the country London. England, Spain, Switzerland, France, and Italy.
Wow. Good for you. Good for you.
Thank God for my ex-girlfriend's parents.
Oh, my God. That was really nice.
That was really nice for them. They gave me a great experience. Oh, man. Happy birthday to Dumars from the chat. Okay, Dumars, happy birthday.
Give me a hell yeah.
Happy 26th birthday to Sabonis. I loved seeing that today on Twitter, by the way.
Okay, so we're about to start the pod, and what we're going to do today, we're going to break down the latest with the Kings coaching search. It seems like it's ever evolving. You've got something on you. Is it blood on you?
Do I?
Blood.
Oh, my.
Morgan had a bloody nose a few minutes ago, and you had blood on the tip of your nose. It's so gross. God.
I was like, I looked better yesterday. I've been coming off of a sickness, and I feel sick again today.
Oh, that's great. So a couple of things. Hit the thumbs up button if you're in the YouTube chat. It just helps our channel grow. That's all there is to it. Carlin, get the hell out of that area.
It's fine.
So hit the thumbs up. If you're on Twitch, follow, subscribe, all that. Couple things. We're going to start talking about the coaching search, and we're going to do things a little differently in here on Morning Chat. We'll definitely talk like we usually do, but I don't know if it's a mistake. It's morning time, but I'm going to open it up to Twitter Spaces and Discord calls today.
I love that you state, I
Warning.
don't know if this is a mistake.
Well,
because we usually do calls on like night chat.
Yeah,
and
different vibe.
different vibes. So what kind of vibe do you get in the morning? Happy people, angry people?
Yeah.
Some people, maybe not even a lot of people. I don't know.
So we're going to do that. And then at 11 a.m., we're having this guy who you guys may not know, but he is a great follow on Twitter. He does a Golden State Warriors podcast, Light Years Pod. Sam Esfandiari. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Esfandiari.
Yeah, you're saying it right.
I don't know. I get in my own head with this. So Sam Esfandiari is going to join us, and he diehard,
He's great.
knows everything about the Golden State Warriors. I'm like, dude, let's ask him about Mark Jackson and Mike Brown because these two guys are finalists for the job. So it'll be good to get his perspective.
Hell yeah. No, excited for all of that. Just asking about even Mark Jackson's ways on the court as a coach. Like, he was there for all of it. So
Yes. Also, I put a poll question up today.
Oh.
Who will the Kings hire?
Oh, not who do you think, who will?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, I mean, I guess who do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, but,
Well, yeah.
47% of people say Mark Jackson.
Okay.
47% of people say Mike Brown. We've
It
got an update.
changed.
Let's go to John King. Mark Jackson at 48%, Mike Brown 45%. Steve Clifford gets no love at 7%.
Well, we already knew that was going to happen.
All right, well, you ready to start the pod?
How surprised would you be if Steve Clifford?
Not just so to be clear,
Yeah.
there is nothing that could surprise
Good
me
point.
with the Kings.
Good
at this
point. No, that's
if
a good
we
point.
got an alert that Dave Yeager was back as head coach, I'd be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, didn't even know that was happening.
Nothing,
Great. Okay.
Nothing would surprise me.
Nothing, huh?
Nothing.
Okay. Can't wait.
Name something.
Rick
Adelman.
Yep.
That would surprise
I was like,
me.
I don't even have anything that's surprising
Yeah.
and out of this world.
All right, I'm ready to go. Deuce and Mo coming down in 3, 2, 1. Hit my music.
Deuce and Mo. Deuce and Mo. Deuce and Mo. They tell you what they know. Deuce and Mo. Deuce and Mo. Deuce and Mo. The podcast that you know.
Welcome into the Deuce and Mo podcast, a Tuesday edition and day 22 of the Kings coaching search. I'm Deuce. That's Mo. How you doing, Mo?
I'm doing fantastic. fantastic on this Tuesday morning. It's Tuesday, right?
Yes,
it is.
Yes, it is. You think it's weird that I know it's day 22 of the Kings coaching search for some reason?
Well, yes, like I don't see a calendar in front of you. I don't see any notes in front of you that say this. So
I count the days.
You really do?
It's not that hard. It was like the day after the season. You go, okay.
Numbers
1, 2,
just
3,
don't
4,
stay
5.
in my head like that.
I counted today. Anyways, day 22, and I guess there's a new story almost every couple of hours. So by the time you're listening to this later, it could change. But for the live people, shout out to you guys for being here.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for being on the YouTube and Twitch chat. Make sure to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe if you're on Twitch, follow, subscribe too if you want to do that. But yes, there's a lot to go over on the show today. We're going to dive deep into some of the stories about the Kings coaching search that came out the last couple of hours and came out after the podcast yesterday. We'll talk about those things. And then at 11 a.m., yeah, we're going long today. 11 a.m. Pacific time, we will chat with Sam Esfandiari. He is someone who does an amazing podcast on the Golden State Warriors, Light Years Pod. He's a co-host of that. And I'm like, we got to have him on to get some perspective from someone who watched Mark Jackson, someone who's watched the Warriors now and understands what Mike Brown means, and kind of get his thoughts on both candidates.
Yeah, he's been in it, so he's going to have a whole new perspective. And I feel like I say a whole new perspective, just how about just another perspective, right? And I think that's what's been so interesting about this last week or so for us, Deuce, is that each person we've talked to, I just learn something new. I get something new. I get a new opinion. It's been fascinating to see all of this kind of come to play.
You have to do that. You have to dive deep into these candidates to
Yeah.
figure it out a little bit. So we'll do the best we can to share what we know and pass along with you guys. Also, we're on Twitter Spaces and on Discord. So if you want to hop in and chat with us today, you can request to talk. Let's have some fun.
Hell yeah.
All right, let's start with the very latest Morgan Reagan. As I mentioned, day 22 of the Kings coaching search, and some stories that trickled out this morning, including one from Bleacher Report that suggests that Vivek Ranadive likes Mark Jackson and Monte McNair and Wes Wilcox like Mike Brown.
Okay.
That's interesting for a variety of reasons because it's fine that Vivek could like a candidate, but ultimately, if Monte McNair and Wes Wilcox like Mike Brown, I guess it should be Mike Brown.
Correct. And that's why this report coming out is interesting, because I'm fine with any reports coming out being like, Vivek likes so-and-so, Vivek likes so-and-so. I don't give a shit. He likes so-and-so. Who's picking so-and-so, right? And so that's why even with this report, I'm interested because we've seen in the past how things have gone in this front office and how people have said, oh, well, it's Vivek, leaning this way with something or this way. And we've heard for so long that this is Monte McNair's team. So where are we right now with all of this? And where I'm at with all this is I don't care what happens or how it happens. I just need it to be Monte McNair's pick. And even if it did end up being someone persuaded by Vivek being like, no, this is the direction you need to go, guess what? It's going on Monte McNair's resume.
Yeah, and just to be clear, there's been a couple of reports suggesting that, one from Mark Stein yesterday, that Vivek has been really impressed with Mark Jackson throughout this interview process. And then Sam Amick from The Athletic, our buddy, put out a piece yesterday saying that Vivek was not involved in the first round of interviews, that the first round of interviews were done over Zoom. And that involved the candidates, and that also involved Joe Dumars, who's no longer with the team. We'll get into that. Monte McNair and Wes Wilcox. So how would Vivek be into Mark Jackson at that point? I guess one way would be you can record a Zoom conversation, and I guess Vivek could have conceivably watched it.
Correct.
Back. Maybe he's had conversations too on the side. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think a couple of things that have to be noted as these candidates, the three, will be meeting with Vivek. There's nothing weird about that part of it, right? Like Steve Clifford was in town yesterday. I don't know if he's still in town today, but he was definitely in town yesterday. Mark Jackson's going to be in town this week, and then Mike Brown later this week before Game 3 of Warriors-Grizzlies. There's nothing weird about an owner meeting with a potential head coach. In fact, that's very normal.
Right.
Where it gets weird is if like Vivek is like overruling his basketball people, right? Because it is so important that if you hire basketball ops people, they're the experts. They're the people that are trying to shape the roster, shape the culture, shape the team, hire the coach. It's their vision. And not to say that an owner shouldn't ask questions, an owner shouldn't press, an owner shouldn't be like, hey, have you thought about this? Totally fair. But if all those questions are answered, it should be the front office's call to be like, this is our guy. Okay, sign off. Boom, I'm good with it. You're good with it. Let's go. But I think the fear here is if Mark Jackson is hired, the perception is it is a Vivek Ranadive hire and not a Monte McNair one because of stories like this.
Yep.
And that's where I think a lot of fans go, what the hell?
Right. Like, man, we're back here again. Right? Where like Vivek is going to have that say, even though he hired these basketball-minded people to actually ultimately make the decision on what's best for the basketball floor, for the team, not just the organization, but for the team. And so, yeah, it's frustrating when you hear things like that. But at the same time, Deuce, you and I were talking a little bit too about other owners within the sports world, right? And how we've seen in the past, some owners have a lot more say in who gets picked as head coach. But a lot of these owners that do and will have say on who gets picked as a head coach and everything also sometimes have a winning track record or something to back it up a little.
But like, that's the thing. These guys spend billions on teams. They're going to have some sort of say. They're not just going to write a check and shut up.
Right.
Like, that's unfair to even suggest that. Joe Lacob is going to have a say with his team.
Correct.
Mark Cuban, Steve Ballmer. Hell, last year or before the Clippers hired Ty Lue, Mike Brown did a Zoom interview with the Clippers, and then he flew to LA and spent the day with Steve Ballmer. There's nothing weird about that. It's just when you get to a point where a decision has to be made, who is making that call? And that's where it becomes a situation, especially in Sacramento, with the track record of how things have gone over this last 9 years, but the last 16 years that you go, why would it go that way? Like, if Monte is the general manager of the team, if he's the leader of the front office, like, he should be able to pick his guy. He came in and got hired on as a GM, and it was not his coach.
Right.
And then he elected to keep Luke Walton. Now the coaching search is open. He should be able to pick his guy. Yeah.
And I think where the worries come into play, because Kings fans all saw it with their own eyes in that war room, that behind the scenes footage of Vivek Ranadive saying Nick Stauskas, right? When they were trying to see who they wanted to pick in the draft. And with the owner having the final say in that, and the visual of that happening in the behind the scenes, and then it not working outright at all for this organization, for this franchise, I can understand where the worries come into play and why an article like this is like, oh, we've seen this before.
Well, let's take a deeper dive into the article written by Jake Fisher. The Kings conclude their second round discussions with Clifford and Sacramento on Monday. Next in line will be Jackson and then Brown, who is a mid-Golden State second round series against the Grizzlies. After an initial list of 7 candidates, Kings officials have maintained their 3 finalists each hold a level chance of securing a post. A decision could come as soon as next week. But early indications during the round of interviews are that Jackson is the front runner and Kings chairman Vivek Ranadive's favorite to emerge as Sacramento's replacement for interim head coach Alvin Gentry. Jackson has long been a darling of Ranadive, of course, who spent time with the Warriors. In 2020, Ranadive urged Sacramento front office to consider Jackson for the associate head coach position that went to Gentry. Today, Jackson's candidacy appears staked in a few key areas. The Kings are prioritizing previous head coaching experience and defensive identity, but Ranadive is also said to be searching for a vocal leader who can introduce a much-needed element of day-to-day identity to the organization. A head coach is often a franchise's loudest public voice, speaking to the media following every practice, plus before and after every game. Okay. But which faction of the Kings brass makes the decision may hold even greater intrigue around the league. For months, Ranadive has told colleagues across the NBA that GM Monte McNair has full autonomy atop Sacramento's basketball operations. Kings personnel insist that to be the case. The move to terminate Luke Walton midseason, for example, came from McNair and not ownership. Multiple sources, according to Bleacher Report, believe Brown is a favorite among McNair's front office. Wes Wilcox, a Kings assistant GM, began his career with the Cavs in 2003, overlapping Brown's first tenure as Cleveland head coach from 2005 to 2010. Mark Jackson, was believed to be Joe Dumars' top choice to become the Pistons head coach in 2011 when Jackson took the Golden State job that first brought him onto Ron Adive's radar.
So that was the Bleacher Report piece, correct?
Yes.
Now, just looking at that last paragraph that you just talked about with Joe Dumars and him really wanting Mark Jackson to be the head coach with the Pistons. Joe Dumars' departure as of yesterday, when it actually was announced, is very interesting timing, because within this Sam Amick article that we will get to, I just want to state this one point, is that Joe Dumars was more of an influence than a lot of us even knew. It was finally reported. Remember, you and I, we heard speculation that could be the case. It was reported by Sam Amick that was the case. There was a lot of influence there. How much of this influence is still lingering in Vivek Ranadive's ear as of today, being like, well, Joe Dumars was my guy and he loved Mark Jackson. I love Mark Jackson. We don't know. So now, can Monte McNair and Wes Wilcox change that narrative, change that decision, and go with the pick that they want?
We also don't know if, like,
they like Mark
there's
Jackson.
a battle right now.
Right.
Like, it could just be like, right now, Vivek likes Mark Jackson. And right
Absolutely.
now, they like it. And we'll see how they're still going through the process. So, to be fair, that could be the case, too. They're still going through the process. And if Vivek has a past history with Mark Jackson, I mean, it's fair to say that maybe he does lead. But you know what? Mike Brown comes to town, and if he's the final person that comes into town, you can leave with the last impression. God, this seems like a reality show, like a dating show.
Yeah, no, it really does.
Would you rather be first, middle, or last? I think you want to go last.
In the interview process?
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, you can leave the last impression. The freshest, prisoner of the moment.
Yeah, you can. You can. But I mean, I just feel like with resources, technology these days, like, you can go back on an interview, especially if it is recorded like it is over Zoom. But the in-person ones, yes, that's where you can leave the biggest last impression, I guess.
So, Morgan, you did reference Sam Amick's piece in The Athletic yesterday. And the thing about Joe Dumars, which was interesting, is that he detailed the fact that Joe Dumars' contract was expiring with the team. And Sam was told he wanted more direct control over the front office if he was going to return. In Dumars' desired structure, McNair would have reported to him rather than Ron Adive. Ron Adive didn't share an interest in that sort of setup, so Dumars has opted to go to a prominent role with the league. A source with knowledge of the situation says it does not appear Dumars' role will be filled by the Kings.
That's good.
A couple of layers here. On one hand, like, okay, good. Like, the Joe Dumars is headed back to work in the NBA office. Awesome. The fact that he wanted, like, full control, I'm like, okay, was there like weird infighting?
Thank you.
You know, and that's not a good thing either.
No. But
he, obviously Joe is now back with the league. But like you said, he was involved in the early interview process. This is Sacramento. It's so bizarre. Who knows what's happening? Power
trips and weird ass shit all the time. Like, excuse my language. It's frustrating when you hear things like that. Like, Joe Dumars wanted power over this and over that. And it's like, the only reason why you would want someone to report to you or you'd want power over something is because you want to be able to control the narrative, the situation, the final say. Like, that is ultimately why you would want that power, especially if you're technically taking that power away from the owner in Vivek Ranadive. Like, I don't understand all the relationships. Yeah. We got a little bit more of a glimpse of what Joe Dumars and Vivek's relationship actually was and the influence that was in there. But, like, I'm just surprised at this point that the organization doesn't look at the way that other teams do things and how, like, the basketball minds that are actually hired should be the ones that ultimately make the on-court decisions.
Yeah. I mean, and it's, to be fair, we could find out, next week Mike Brown's a guy, and this is not really a conversation.
Absolutely.
I think the issue here now, right, is like we've talked so much about these candidates, right, and we're going to take a deeper dive in a little bit on Mike Brown and Mark Jackson, but if they do go with Mark Jackson, Monte, a couple of things. If Mark Jackson isn't Monte's guy, then he shouldn't be hired. And I think it irritates people if like they hire Mark Jackson and it really wasn't Monte's decision. Yeah, Monte's saying it's his decision.
Oh my God.
Like
that's on him.
Yeah, like
that's on him then.
If it didn't leave, like quit or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like if you don't want that on your resume and what could happen with that, then exactly. Then leave. Then don't have that happen. I mean, you and I, throughout our years of so many different organizations and companies that we've worked for, we have realized when to say our no, when something is crossing the line. You have to have your standards. And if that ended up being the case, then yes, I would hope that's what would happen next.
If you're in Twitter Spaces and you want to chat with us, request to talk. We'll take some calls. Same with Discord. I'll drop the Discord link in the chat. Of course, we'll read some of your comments in the chat, too. Update on the poll question, who will the Kings hire? 54% of people say Mike Brown. 42% say Mark Jackson. Steve Clifford, 4%.
Poor Steve. Poor Steve.
This is what people think.
I mean, we also talked to Sean Cunningham yesterday a little bit more about it, and he was saying how Steve Clifford, he feels like if anything, and this is just his opinion, could be a part of one of those coaching staffs. And that's really why he's like even in the process possibly, because the way that we're not hearing any rumblings and excitement around his name is interesting.
Let's kick things off today with Red Hawk. What's up, Red Hawk?
How are
What's
you guys
up,
doing?
dude? We are good, man. What's up?
My thoughts on the coaching search.
Sure.
I mean, I really have no idea, if I'm going to be frank. I'm just a fan. So I really hope Monte just makes the right decision. Everything that you guys have been saying and I've been listening to this whole off season, just that it has to be right. It has to be the right guy. Like we've gone through so many coaches, within this whole losing streak. So I just really hope they make the right choice and that the coach can also represent the city well, the organization well, and the fans well.
You know what else, Red Hawk, too? Just kind of going off of what you're saying, like I hope the coach can do this, 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 and this. You know what? I've thought about this, and I think I came up with this epiphany this morning as I'm just like laying in bed thinking about all this because obviously I'm obsessed and this runs my entire life, is that I ultimately don't give a damn right now if the coach is nice to me. I don't care if the next coach is nice to you. I don't give a damn if he even likes the city of Sacramento. I don't.
What do you mean?
Just get me some goddamn wins on the court, and then I will be happy. And so would you, and everyone. Nobody would care about how nice this person was, right? And how he represents the city. As long as he doesn't do anything illegal, we good.
You know what? You're right. You're right, Mo. Mo, you're right. You convinced me.
Are my standards too low now? Are my standards too low?
No, because we're Kings fans. We're Kings fans. But in other news, I want to let you guys know I'm graduating and getting my bachelor's this week.
Oh, congratulations. That's awesome.
And I just want to thank you guys for like just being background noise for me while I write all my essays and do all my homework, because I mean I listen to you guys every day.
What's your major again?
Political science.
What are you trying to do in life?
Hopefully run and represent Sacramento.
Whoa.
Okay.
Cool. We got a dirty politician. Great.
Oh. Be a good one. Be a good one, all right?
Go take that special interest money, you scumbag.
Hey, proud of you, Red Hawk. And yeah, that's really cool. And thank you for always tuning in to us, too, during all these crazy times. So appreciate you.
Yeah, yeah. All right, go.
All right, congrats, Red Hawk. Get the hell out of here. Appreciate that. I was while Red Hawk was spouting off about his nonsense.
And complimenting us.
Yeah, I don't need compliments at this time. I was looking at the Kings coaching history because we talk so much about the last couple of this last stretch since Adelman.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear something that's kind of depressing, guys?
Oh my God, yes. How'd you know that's what I wanted today?
So Rick Adelman is by far the longest tenured Kings head coach at 8 years.
Okay.
The next closest is Gary St. Jean, lasting 5 years.
Dear God.
Phil Johnson was here for 2. Then you had Jerry Reynolds as interim. You had Russell here for a minute and a half. Then Reynolds again. Dick Motto was here a couple of years. Rex Hughes, 91, 92. Then you had St. Jean for 5. Eddie Jordan filled in for a couple. Then,
okay.
There's no one more than 3 years.
So not only depressing, but you guys, can we go off of track record right now? With this next coach, whoever it may be, Mark Jackson, Mike Brown, Steve Clifford, someone random, whoever it may be, I just feel like, too, the expectations of how long they will actually be coaching here need to be lowered. Even if they turn things around. For example, Mark Jackson started turning things around. Then other things were reported, and then he was fired and not the coach anymore. And then Steve Kerr really brought it to the next level. My point is, it's like, just hope that this next coach can be the one to turn the corner, to help turn things around, even if they're not here past 5 years. Truly. I mean, you look at that, Deuce, why would you even expect another coach to be here that long? And I know those are different regimes. I understand all of that.
The whole point is, since 1985, since the Kings got here, you've got Adelman at 8 years and then St. Jean at 5. After that, it's literally a revolving door of head coaches. And that's what happens. That's what happens when you have 8 winning seasons in 37 years, for sure. But it is almost staggering that this isn't just like a problem since 2006. This has been a problem for 37 years.
Yeah.
Which is pretty insane.
No, that just made me sick to my core. So
that's why I always talk about how, this is so different.
What, this coaching search? Or
No. Just people. Our franchise has it the worst. Oh, our fan base. Oh, nothing can compare to the history of the Sacramento Kings' first 37 years. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, it's so true. I remember being on the phone with a guy a couple months ago, and we're talking about business things, and then he was like, "Oh, well, I'm a Mavs fan," so I'm like,
yeah, he was trying to sell we haven't been out of the first round since 2011. I'm like,
did I not just say what the Sacramento Kings track record is? Did I stutter? Come on now. And I did stutter.
Let's get to some comments. You want to get to some comments?
Yeah.
If you're here, hit the thumbs up button. That should be well over 100, please.
Let's go.
Also, don't be shy. If you're in Twitter Spaces, raise your hand. Let's talk. Aldrin says, I prefer Mark Jackson, but I'll be okay with Mike Brown. I just think Mark is a potential home run. Yeah, I heard our guy Casey over from D-Lo and Casey talk about that, and he thinks that Mark Jackson would be the guy that would be a potential home run hire.
And what's that definition of a home run hire?
The ceiling is so much higher. Now, it could be really crazy too, right? To me, it could be an epic home run, or it could be a huge swing and a miss. I mean,
I see. So that's the definition of a home run. It could be either or.
Yeah, well, I think that's what kind of Kenny's point was.
Okay. I mean, I guess, but isn't that kind of with any hire?
No.
I can't wait to talk about this with Kenny on Thursday.
Yeah.
You say no, but I feel like let's say it was Steve Clifford. Let's just say it was Steve Clifford. You're going for it. There's something else. You're going for it with Steve Clifford.
What does that mean? You're going for it. What do you mean by that?
You're going with head coach, a former head coach that has a certain track record in the league and hasn't won a whole bunch. So you're going for it. So it could be a huge turning point in your franchise or a huge miss. I mean, I feel like that's the same with.
That's any coach. Though.
Yeah.
No, I just think based on what Mark Jackson has done, right? The Mark Jackson thing is so complicated.
I see where we're going with this. Okay.
He coached 3 seasons 8 years ago.
Okay.
He has all this stuff against him, yet there's all these his former players who love him, who
superstar players.
It's tough.
It's fascinating.
I've gone to the point, to be honest, this is how I look at this whole thing. You've had a situation where, and I've seen the social media stuff, I see Reddit, I try to read everything just to get a pulse on things.
Yeah. Yes.
The pro Mark Jackson people
Or where?
They're so, again, this is life, I guess, in 2022.
Yeah.
The pro Jackson
Extremes.
people are so over the top, like, no, culture changer, he's going to do it, blah, blah, blah. Like, speaking in absolutes, like, this is it. And then the anti-crowd, you could show them a Steph Curry video or a Draymond Green, and it doesn't matter. And it's like, guys, like,
You got to be open.
we can acknowledge the risk here. We can acknowledge that people do change and maybe he's evolved. My biggest question for Mark Jackson at this point is more about he's been away from the game coaching for 8 seasons.
Okay.
And I think it's so important to be like in it, right? And he's calling games. I want to know, is he spending time talking to other coaches in the league? How, has he built relationships? Is he capable today, 8 years after he coached, of putting together a legitimate coaching staff? Like, does he have the relationships? How has he evolved as a coach?
Right.
Has he come up with different philosophies offensively, defensively? The game has changed since 2014.
And the reason why we can ask this about Mark Jackson and not Mike Brown, because Mike Brown is in it.
Yeah,
he is a coach. He is not only an active coach, but he's also a coach that there have been pieces on about his journey and the way that he has evolved as a coach over the times. I'm not saying there has to be a piece on Mark Jackson and how his coaching techniques have evolved for me to believe it. I just haven't seen anything, and it's been such a huge gap is why this whole thing is so compelling and why Kenny's thing of saying Mark Jackson would be a home run or is a
no, he's a potential.
What is it? A potential to be a home run.
He could be a home run hire. Like,
And
if
that's
it works,
why.
it could be awesome.
Yes, no, and I get that because
Boom or bust.
Exactly. You're asking for a lot here from a guy that's been not in it for a long time. But around it, absolutely.
Mark Jackson could be the right hire, but if he gets hired, the choice will be tainted just because it was reported that he was Vivek's preference. That's terrible. Yeah, and that's what's unfortunate. And you don't know who's putting out these stories, right? Well, you know who's putting out the stories, but you don't know how they're getting the information. Like, is Mark Jackson's agent like, dude, we got to keep your name out there. I'm going to put out there that Vivek really likes him. Like, I don't know. Like, is that, you don't, this game of sources in sports is insane.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it really, really complicated.
Yeah.
So,
And that's what's crazy about all this. We can talk about this, hear about what's being reported, just like you're saying. But at the same time, like, there's still going to be several sides to a lot of these stories. There's going to be a side that a reporter isn't reporting on, right? But it's trying to be fair and just give the information that is being delivered to them. So it's very complicated, complex, but it's fun in the sense to break down because it is just such a fascinating topic when you're talking about Mark Jackson possibly being the next head coach of one of the worst teams in NBA history.
yeah, I mean, I'm not going a team that's in probably one of the worst stretches
Right.
for sure.
I'm not
I mean,
talking
16
about
years,
like the actual roster. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about like
yeah.
the team,
yes.
the organization.
It's been 16 years, and all we just want to talk about the revolving door of coaches, and Mark Jackson, who hasn't coached in this long, who hasn't been coaching at all, we've talked about what Joe Lacob said about him. Like, it seems unlikely that would. it would be a crazy story. It would be insane.
Yeah. Which is why we're talking about this each and every day with someone new, with a new opinion, a new angle, a new perspective. And my God, thank you, Sam Amick, for coming out with that piece yesterday with the Joe Dumars stuff, because, you know, you and I, a lot of speculation going on about what Dumars really does and what kind of voice he had in the organization. And we just got a little bit more insight on that.
Absolutely. And with Mike Brown, I think we went over a lot about him yesterday on the podcast. He's been in it. You know what I mean? And I saw someone in here say, "Oh, he's too boring." What are you talking about?
What does that even mean?
What? Like, you definitely need someone that's going to inspire and motivate, all that stuff for sure. But I think he has a track record of being around some great coaches. You know, like that's undeniable. And what he has learned over this time, like, I think he's ready for another opportunity. I think he's a good guy. I think he works his ass off. He wants to be great. I think he brings defensive principles that you can't deny. He's had a track record of producing some pretty good defenses in the league. And I think he can help the Kings improve. I think he's helped the Warriors improve this year. So that, to me, what puts Mike Brown over.
Okay.
But I also see what some of the people who are, you know, wanting Mark Jackson, and there are some people who do want Mark Jackson.
Absolutely.
I see what they're saying because he got the most out of that Golden State team. He inspired them. Draymond's talked about the impact he had on his confidence. Steph, like Andre Iguodala said, it was the best coach he's ever had. Those things should matter to people.
Right.
And even if you're in the you could, all I ask for people is to just be fair. On either side. Like, if you're pro Jackson, don't ignore the stuff about 200 people not liking him. Like, that should factor into your thinking. And he has to answer questions about some of the comments he's made and how he's handled things and why he hasn't. Like, he needs to answer all of these questions. But the anti-crowd just wants to dismiss what players think.
Yeah.
The players matter, and these aren't joke players either. This is one of the best players to ever play the game saying this stuff.
Factor every single thing in. And not only that, I was just thinking about this and how fun this would be. But you know how we're not in the interview process and we're not in those rooms and we're not, whether it's being sold on someone or hearing how they are 8 years ago, we're getting this intimate conversation. How effing cool would it be if coaches in sports leagues had to do their interviews and we all could see it like a reality show. And so we could all make our decision and be like, oh, you know, I really like the way that Mike Brown was talking about what he would do with this squad. Or, oh, Mark Jackson's philosophy and the way that he's evolved as a coach is just fascinating. It would, yes, this would be so cool. Obviously, I want so many different reality things following NBA players and NBA coaches. Never going to get it. But that's the only way I feel like any of us can be so hard-headed on it's got to be this guy or it's got to be this guy. Otherwise, you literally just have to be open to it all because you don't know everything. You are not in those rooms having these conversations.
All right, let's go to Twitter Spaces. I'm going to mess up the pronunciation of this person's name. I'm just going to ask them.
Yeah.
I hate messing up names. Hey, you're on Twitter Spaces. Can you say your name so I don't mess it up?
Gurja.
Say it one more time.
Gurja.
How you doing, man?
Doing good. I want to get your opinion on, like, what do you think goes into the best coaches' resumes? Because I'm, like, looking at all the historical coaches, like Phil Jackson, for example. But what do you think a coach would make a good coach, for example? Like leadership qualities, etc. Like, what do you say goes into a good coach?
I think a coach, what makes like a great coach is a coach that's willing and understands how to adjust. And when I say that, that's not keeping your coaching strategy every team and every organization that you go to. It's being willing to work with the pieces that you have and adjust your philosophy on the game or your game plan or how you're going to go about things. So basically being able to do it all and not just being great at one thing. Oh, he's a great offensive coach. He's a great defensive coach. You've got to know the whole game by now and how to work with anything that is presented in front of you.
I think the other thing too is like, one, you do need talent.
You do.
Like that's
you
the other
do.
thing. Like people, talent matters
To get the W's.
But
yes.
yeah, I think having a guy who, I mean, it's changed over time too, right? Like Phil Jackson's style probably doesn't work in today's game, right? Like it changes. And that's probably some of the reservation that is out there about guys who've been out of the game for a minute is like, it's changed. Like maybe Mark Jackson was able to connect with Steph at a younger age, but Steph, that was a long time ago now.
Right.
Like can Mark Jackson still connect with players in today's game?
Right.
How has he evolved there? So I think connecting matters, relationships matters, communication matters. And then obviously putting together a system that is you're not just like, hey, this is my system. It's like, no, like look at the pieces you have, as you were talking about, and make it work with the pieces you have. Anyway.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah, thanks for
David says people can change, but doesn't guarantee they do change.
No, that's true.
Absolutely. But at the same time, too, you know, even if you hated someone 10 years ago from high school or whatever it may be, if you were to see them again, you're going to have your judgments and what you felt from that past. But at the same time, why not, as just like being a human being in this whole human experience, be open to, hey, maybe they change. Then they do something, you cut them off again. You push them away.
If during the interview process, and I hope, you know, when you're hiring a coach, especially with your Kings, you got to do deep dives. It's talking to people who know them, who have worked with them. It's not only interviewing them, right? I think it's doing like deep background checks and understanding, talking to people who they've worked with, people they've coached, all of that stuff. But if Mark Jackson's in the interview process and he's like, I would change nothing about what I did in Golden State, well, that's a red flag. Let's go ahead and lift that red flag up. Like, no, you hope that the Kings, when they're conducting these interviews, are asking tough questions.
Here's my other question too, you guys. Have you ever been in an interview and lied about something, said something, or exaggerated about something?
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God. As a woman in a lot of different places, you have to, because you're not given certain opportunities to already have that experience. So then you say that you have that experience and then you catch on and do what you need to do. But my point is, I'm curious if that's going to be something that happens in some of these interviews and they're saying some things that, hey, like this is what I can do, even if they haven't done it in 10 years. And that's a possibility as well. And that could sell some people, but that's them also sometimes believing in, I can get to that point. So it's okay to believe in yourself and exaggerate, but if you're going to set that goal, get to that goal.
All right, let's go next on Twitter Spaces and check in with the Ox's left knee. Oh, God, I love Twitter Spaces. What's up, Ox's left knee?
What's up, Deuce and Mo? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. What's up, dude?
How's it going, guys? First of all, I just want to thank you guys for bringing all these Kings fans the Kings content, basketball content they need.
Yeah.
And I just want to thank you for getting me through my day with all that stuff. You guys do a good job.
Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you.
I said we did a good job.
Oh.
That's it?
Oh. Deuce.
No. First of all, I just want to talk about like the Kings fans' like reaction to this coach selection. Like as soon as Vivek Ranadiv's name was on Twitter, everyone freaked out. So I'm just like kind of I sit back and I think like, man, if this doesn't work out, that's like if this coach selection doesn't work out and Monte, he's at the end of his tenure, he probably won't get hired again. And we're back doing the same thing we've been doing for 16 years.
Yeah.
If this doesn't work out, like, how substantial is this coach selection for this franchise right now? And like,
I've said it's so important, but I mean, I guess at this point, every one of them has been important since 06. Until you figure out a way to turn things around, like it should be the most important thing. As far as what you're saying, in my opinion, I think when you hire that coach, Monte McNair's contract needs to match up with the coach. I think having that in the same time frame matters, because if you do get in a situation where, let's say you hire Mike Brown and they don't make the playoffs. And then you let McNair go, and then you're bringing a new GM, unless you elevate Wes Wilcox. But either way, like, it just brings a weird dynamic that we've been running into time and time again with Sacramento.
Do you want to keep running in circles with the same thing that you've done years after years after years, right? It's like, it hasn't worked then, so why would you continue along that road? So hopefully that is something that can happen. And I know that this is like one of the most important coaching searches in Sacramento Kings history. But truly, just like Deuce said, that felt like it for all the other coaching searches as well. So it's like, really, it's not going to be the most important until something positive comes out of it and be like, wow, we can look back at that time and be like, man, that pick was the right pick because that was the year that everything turned around. And hopefully that's what we're talking about in 2 years from now.
We should also mention one thing too. Oh, sorry. You probably had more to say. My bad. I forgot you were even there.
You're all good, Deuce. I was just going to say, like, this is like the definition of insanity, you know, doing the same thing over and over again and trying to expect a different result. And, you know, at the end of the day, the common denominator is the ownership. So I think, like personally, if this doesn't work out, I'm going full sell the team mode. I'm going to be chanting at the games. I'm going to try my best, even though it's in vain. But anyway, thank you guys for answering my question. I hope you guys have a good day.
All right, man.
Appreciate you.
Easy. Man, what a weird time.
It is. It is such a weird time. I mean, it's such a weird time.
One thing I did want to bring up, the other openings in the NBA, right? You got the Lakers gig. It seems like they're kind of taking their time with that. The Hornets, they're looking for a head coach after letting James Borrego go. And it was reported today by Wojnarowski that the Hornets are beginning their coaching search. They're interviewing Golden State assistant Kenny Atkinson, Darvin Ham from the Bucks, Dallas assistant Sean Sweeney, and Mike D'Antoni. So a couple of names that were on the Kings' initial list. The one that jumped out to some people, Kenny Atkinson, because he did not interview with the Sacramento Kings. And some people are like, why didn't they do that? Look, I think we all need to deal with reality right now, and this is something we've hit on a lot. When you had the revolving door with head coaches, some people aren't going to be eager to be jumping at the Sacramento job. And with the job openings that are out there, the Hornets, that's more attractive right now, right? The Lakers job may be more attractive, right? LeBron, AD. Like, Carlin is eating something. So that's just the reality of the situation. And then Mike D'Antoni's his name is getting a lot of love right now in Charlotte, which I think is interesting just because it's like their problem was not offense.
No.
It was defense. Big time.
Yeah. And the other reason why this is all so interesting too, because you guys think about these coaches in their lives. Like they go, okay, so I'm going to move my life to Sacramento and not understand or know how much stability I actually have there. Right. That's the reputation around this job, which is completely understandable, right? It's happened so many times now. So if that's not the direction one of these coaches want to go, whether that's Kenny Atkinson or the Kings really didn't interview him, however the hell that actually went down, I'm sure there will be reports on that within time. It makes sense. Why would you want to be a part of an organization that has the track record of firing people all the time and having the revolving door just go round and round?
Yeah, exactly. Alex says the Kings are going to get the number 1 pick, and then Silver is going to go up and announce a pick, but instead he's going to say with the first pick. Okay. I should have read that ahead of time.
I did not see it. I don't want to see it. Where is it?
Forget it.
Okay.
Forget it.
Jesus. I love that Deuce is just like.
I was just diving into it. Number 1 pick, optimism.
I've been there.
Oh, man. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us live. Make sure to hit the thumbs up button. Make sure to subscribe, all that stuff. We should mention that today's podcast presented by our friends over at rate.com/Sean Stanfield. Hey, if you're looking to buy a house, if you're looking to refinance, Sean is your guy. He's helped a couple of our podcast listeners, one, get a house.
Yeah.
The other, refinance it. It was an awesome experience.
But you know what's so great about this too, Deuce, is
What,
like
Morgan?
Sean Stanfield is the type of guy that you can just reach out to and ask anything. You don't have any idea what the hell a mortgage even is or how to refinance or what it even means.
Can I afford a house?
Like, don't even Google it. Just text Sean Stanfield.
So hit him up. Go to rate.com/Sean Stanfield. You can also give him a call or text him at 916-276-7563. You can also ask him about the Kings coaching search if you want. That's Equal Housing Lender. Subject to credit approval. NMLS ID number 349707. Company NMLS ID number 2611. NMLSconsumeraccess.org. Thanks so much to our friends over at
Guaranteed.
Right.
Guaranteed.
Right.
Also presented today by New York Times bestselling author. She's the one and only T.R. Reagan.
Get your summer reading on, everybody. T.R. Reagan, her latest book, Count to Three. I mean, it's exciting. And just to give you a little blurb from it, for a private investigator on the trail of a missing girl, every second counts in a gripping thriller by New York Times bestselling author T.R. Reagan. All of her stories are creepy as hell, and people just fall in love with them. They fall in love with the characters. So if you're just looking for something else this summer, especially if you're going on vacation anywhere or just need to like get your mind off of Kings basketball for a second, make sure to go to Amazon.com, search T.R. Reagan. You can see all of her novels there. If you want to ask me what book you should start with, I would say Abducted, or start with her newest one, Count to Three.
As someone who has read a couple of her series,
Yeah.
be prepared. Buckle up. They're dark. They're twisted. They're based in Sacramento. I loved it. I mean, it's like a binge read. You're just you can't got to keep going. I'm like flipping it like I'm actually doing a hard copy.
Yeah.
I've got my Kindle. Let's be honest. But yeah, definitely have to check out T.R. Reagan. Appreciate her support of the Deuce and Mo podcast. All right, let's go next to Bryce. What's up, Bryce? Welcome in to Morning Chats.
What's going on? You guys hear me all right?
We got you, man. What's on your mind?
Awesome. Oh, just listening to everybody's take and listening to you guys talk about all the coaches and then listening to him and everybody else talk about it. I think I'm just sold on Mike Brown, personally. I think the guy's just got a psychosis for details that I can really enjoy. And I think that's what the Kings need. The Kings need somebody like the Kings.
Yeah.
It's going to sound terrible. The Kings need a dad, all right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I do, but I don't know what that's like. What is it like to have a dad? What do they do in your life?
They need someone who can show them, the right way to do things.
Okay.
Someone that can show them, right and wrong.
So I would say probably a mother then.
So they need,
the Kings need a caretaker of some script.
I'm kidding. Don't want to offend all the guys out there.
Right. Oh God! Look out for masculinity chat. I don't know. I just feel like that's what they need, right? Like someone who's like scared.
The point you're making about the details is so, to me, important because it's something that literally De'Aaron Fox mentioned in his postseason presser.
Yeah. Right. Show me what to do. Give me a little structure. Give me a little guidance. I feel like that'd be the best. So what the team, just from my opinion, what they need the most, I feel like he can offer that.
Yeah.
He's not 104. Like he can still be here a bit. Like it's just, I don't know. I feel like he's the best. I mean, he's been on championship teams.
Bryce, trust me, we feel like I feel the same way, but just don't feel so strongly about this in your body and in your soul, because then it probably won't happen. Like, know how this stuff, know what I mean? And it's like, I agree with you. We both feel the same way based on what we've read, based on people we've talked to. And that's why I'm so excited to talk to our next guest, Sam, too, a little bit more about Mike Brown and what else he adds as a coach. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that Mike Brown is saying yes to the Kings either.
Well, that's the thing. I think that's the biggest thing right now for me is like, do you think, I don't know. I mean, obviously he's coming to Sacramento. He's meeting with the team for the second round, but like, you got to sell Mike Brown on this job too. Like he hasn't coached in the league since that weird situation with the Cavs where he got one season out of a 5-year deal. Before that, he got a season and then 5 games in the second season with the Lakers. he's had some time, right? And he's in a stable situation with the Warriors where he's got a prominent role. Like, maybe he's content doing that and waiting for the right opportunity.
Maybe.
However, yeah, I like a lot about Mike Brown. I've thought about this a lot with Mike. I'm like, God, I could see us looking back in 5 years and like, man, I'm so glad they were able to land Mike Brown. That's exactly what this Kings team needed. I'm not nervous as much about Mike Brown because I know he's going to work hard. Mm-hmm. He's going to connect with the players. Now, will it lead to 800 wins? I don't know. There's a lot of factors. Talent matters, roster construction, all of that. But I just think he would be the most prepared guy. I think he's learned. He's battle-hardened. There's a lot to like about Mike Brown.
Yeah, he'd be our Rick Adelman moment all over again. That's how I feel like.
Hey, if you look at the numbers, there's the win totals at the same age are very, very similar.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, man, he's the coachiest of all the coaches.
Yeah.
Give me that guy. Give me the guy who knows what he's doing, the guy who's not afraid to speak his mind, the guy who's not afraid to show people how, be the coach. Like, just be the damn coach.
Yeah.
I don't care about all this other stuff. And if it is Mark Jackson, fine. Just be the coach. Like, I don't care about that other stuff.
Yeah.
Just for the love of God, can we win for once? That's all I care about.
Bryce.
Good Lord.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you checking in. There's Bryce.
Later.
Appreciate him
Love
dropping
his
in.
passion.
I know some people like to mention the talent that Mike Brown had.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. Like, Mike Brown had LeBron James. And when he was with the Lakers, he had, yes. I mean, talent does matter in this league. You do need talent. I don't hold that necessarily against him.
Yep.
And some of the same stuff is stuff, and I hate mentioning this because now I feel like I'm comparing him to Adelman, but Adelman, kind of the same vibe. Like, hey, he had talent in Portland. He had Clyde. Those were great teams. He goes to the Warriors. It's a chaotic situation. Look, he could have fixed that. Adelman was about to take the job at Portland State before he got the Kings gig, right? So
yeah.
If Adelman doesn't come to Sacramento and have that 8-year run, he's not in the Hall of Fame. So you just never know. And Rick Adelman is the same age. I do want to get the Skips comment real fast. My concern about Mike Brown is that his success was aided by once-in-a-generation players and better rosters than what the Kings have had. Cliff increased defensive rating with bad defensive players. And I like that Skips bringing up Steve Clifford because that's a name we're not talking about enough for whatever reason because it's not the sexy name. But yes, Steve Clifford for sure. I think he would still be in Orlando right now if they were going on the same path. They decided to rebuild. It was kind of a mutual thing. He was like, I don't want to go through this process. The front office is like, let's go with the younger guy too. Cool. Thanks, Steve.
Deuces.
But he definitely got the most out of the teams he coached. They all became really good defensive teams. And we talk about Mike Brown's preparation. It's the same thing with Steve Clifford. Like, Steve Clifford is prepared. He approaches every game, every practice with that mindset of it's going to be structured. We're really going to build a foundation of defense, and we're going to get teams that may not have the greatest defensive players to be able to play good team defense.
No, there's lots of things I like about Steve Clifford too, right? And I don't personally know who the right pick is because I can sit here today.
Coward.
No, because I can sit here today and be like, it's Mike Brown. It's right. No. I like Mike Brown. I like what I've read about Mike Brown. I like what people say about Mike Brown. I like Mike Brown. Mike Brown could end up being the worst decision in Kings history. You just don't know it until it's happening, right? Like, but you try to avoid any mistake that you can make. And by avoiding mistakes, you usually would avoid people who haven't been in the coaching game for a while. You would think, or you avoid controversy and all these other things. I'm not just talking about Mark Jackson. I'm talking about there's other people out there as well. Like, you just avoid certain things, but at the same time, you just don't know until it's out there. So
Johnny Dewitt says, all good candidates. I'm more concerned about roster construction than the coach, honestly. Whoever they end up with choosing, it's whatever.
I mean, yeah, like how many times last year Deuce and I are talking about, oh, hey, there's a lot of good talent on this squad, but it doesn't go together. It doesn't work. So who's going to construct this roster to be different? That's Monte McNair's job, and that's what we're hoping to see next year. But also, if you are a coach and you are given that certain talent, you still have to be like, it's your job to get wins. And like if people buy in and are disciplined and there are standards, you'd be surprised what shit you can have on the floor and make it all work.
Hey, Chet, can we just acknowledge how much Morgan's been cussing today?
I didn't cuss that much today.
Okay.
At all.
You're dropping S. I mean, you're working blue today, as they would say back in the day in comedy.
That what they would say.
Yeah, NP Chase just following. I think he probably agrees.
He didn't say anything.
Yeah. Our guest is about to come on at 11, and we have Ross here that we could go to.
Oh, you could
Do we
risk
gamble?
it.
Do we
Gamble, and then we can just tell Ross.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Ross. What's up, Ross? Welcome in to Morning Chat. What's on your mind, man? We may have a guest that comes on, so we may have to dump you fast, but go ahead.
Yeah, dump me whenever, man. Good to hear you guys' voice. I've been listening. Just haven't been calling in, but I appreciate you guys keeping it rolling. On the coaching search, I think we got to just, whatever it is, obviously you need personnel for defense, but something I really noticed in the first round was, and it was driving me nuts, was a team like Brooklyn, their just lack of defensive focus is like, it drove me nuts. Like, you'd see Kyrie fall asleep in the corner. And I remember calling, kind of talking to you guys about Fox doing the same thing earlier in the year, just kind of losing focus. And it doesn't really seem like that big of a deal at the time. But by the time the ball rotates and somebody's getting to the corner, that's the difference between a game. Even look at that game one that they lost. Kyrie and KD both were falling asleep with 3 seconds left. And if they win that game, I mean, that whole series could have been completely different. But look at the 8 teams that are remaining, and their defensive focus is just incredible.
Yeah.
Don't take any plays off, constantly rotating, arms always up. And, I don't know who I want to be coach. I'm almost looking at it like a draft pick where we really think we know who's going to be, we should get this guy, and then he's out of the league in 2 years. So I'm going to let the professionals do their job. Obviously, I want Mike Brown, but I'm okay with any 3.
What jumps out to you about Mike Brown?
I don't know. He's got experience. I always kind of liked him in Cleveland. He seemed like a motivator. He seemed like he just is very adaptable. He had a little different style wherever he went. I'm not exactly sure what does it for me, which is kind of how I felt about like draft picks and stuff. It's like, I'm okay with any 3 because I'm not the expert. And I can fully say that, out of any of these 3, who really knows? But I'm just going to let McNair do his job because I like what he's done so far.
Can we just all acknowledge Ross is a bit of a coward? Right? Like,
don't you dare.
Tell me who you want and who's going to be the best. Take a stance.
You don't have to, by the way, because that's our whole point is that we keep telling people they don't have to. But seriously, who would you pick?
It would be 100% Mike Brown.
Yeah.
I just really liked that you guys came on yesterday and took the opposite argument with Mark Jackson because, Kings fans love to freak out. Like, we like to.
And just to be clear, Ross, I'm not even trying to take the opposite. I'm trying to be fair. Like, I just think that we ignore, just depending on what our narratives are, like, we want to, we'll ignore the other side. Oh, we'll dismiss it, And it's like, no, you can't dismiss, like, the negative aspects of Mark Jackson, but you shouldn't dismiss that a lot of his players liked him. Like, okay, the guy didn't get along with ownership. He didn't get along with Joe Lacob.
Or 200 other people, possibly.
Yeah, Joe Lacob, the guy didn't like him, who said like 200 people don't like him. Okay, but it seemed like the 15 guys in the locker room did, except Andrew Bogut. And let's be honest, take a look at Andrew Bogut's Twitter feed. I don't really like the guy either. So like, that's you have to be fair. That's all I asked her in this process. Like, don't push it. I say don't push your agenda. Even though like the other day I'm gonna push your agenda. Don't dismiss the other side. Like, you have to look at everything.
No, for sure. I mean, we need somebody that's gonna light a fire under Fox because he's like the key piece. Obviously, he's talented. I think the real question with him, and I hate to say it, is his focus, and it's something like we were talking about with that defense, like falling asleep when the ball's on the opposite side of the court. Like, it doesn't seem like a big deal in the whole, but you look at like the Celtics or the Bucks, or like I watched the Miami Heat last series, and they're you don't see one person lose focus, and you just need somebody to say like, listen, man, that's the difference between that Brooklyn-Boston game. If Brooklyn doesn't fall asleep on that last play, they win that first game, and they, in my opinion, they win the series.
Whoa.
Damn.
I mean, they what, 4 games, they lost by a total of like 13, 14 points, and they were pretty much dominating most of the series. And excuse my language, I counted like 5 to 10 times a game where Kyrie, because I'm a basketball nerd, I'll rewatch a play and I'll see who's responsible for the breakdown on defense, and it was Kyrie every time.
Oh yeah.
All it takes is one guy to just kind of put his hands down, and then the whole team breaks down. So we need 5 guys that are, out there diving on the floor. And if Mark Jackson is the guy that can get it out of them, why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Why
Ross?
not?
Taking a little bit of Coach Nick's
I
line.
miss Coach Nick.
Of course, our guest is running a bit behind too, so this actually worked out quite well.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Ross, this was perfect.
Dude, good to talk to you guys. Appreciate the content, man. You guys have a good one. Looking forward to the guest.
All right, appreciate
Bye,
it, man.
Ross.
There's Ross.
Later.
Yeah. Dude, he had such a great point though about these defensive teams, and these are, you guys, I saw someone, I think at some point say like, it doesn't matter about the coach, it just matters about like the players on the floor or whatever. And it's like, well, the coach is the person that's managing that, especially when there's no superstars. Like on the Kings roster, there's no superstars. So that is what the coach is managing and trying to bring out of these players, and especially that team aspect when you have 5 people together, working together with one standard, with one identity, especially on the defensive end. You'd be surprised what magic you can create with that. I mean, just look at the Mavs even. Like, even with someone like Luka Doncic, who isn't the best defender, but where they took their defense as a team this season, you have to have the right people. How'd that defense look last night? Yeah, it looked like shit. Crap. God, sorry. It looked like crap. Yeah, Morgan's working blue. But seriously, you'd be surprised what can happen when you just have the right coach in place, managing that and pushing that out there.
Shout out to Kenneth, by the way, who just donated $50.
Appreciate you, Kenneth.
And Nicholas, who followed us on Twitch. Appreciate that. Rory says, Deuce, I think the thing you're missing is if I don't agree with Mark Jackson, the person, then it doesn't matter to me. Steph and Draymond thought of him as a coach. Yeah, I mean, I hear you on that. I even think some of that stuff is complicated, right? Like I've said, I don't agree with Mark Jackson's views. And to be completely fair to Mark Jackson, he has denied that he made the comments that were reported in a story after he got let go. Yeah. He has denied some of that stuff. So it's his word against a report. I don't know. Like, you're right. If he said the things about Collins like that, like I don't get down with that. And hopefully he's evolved his thinking as a person, and maybe he's understanding like you shouldn't be homophobic. Like hopefully, I mean, I hope so. I mean,
it's 2022.
Yeah.
Come on, people, accept everybody. For the love of
God. I mean, it would be ridiculous if he still felt that. So I don't know. He is, and I'm just being fair. He has denied those comments,
and that's that side of things. Him denying those comments is something that hasn't been pushed out a lot.
Well, the other thing too is like the Festus Ezeli thing that came out, where like apparently when Festus was hurt, there was a story that came out about how Mark Jackson tried to get the team against Festus or something like that. But then like Festus and him like are going and chatting on Twitter.
Yeah.
Like they're cool. So I don't know what to think.
You sometimes we don't know the whole story, but we can go off of what we do know. So I understand why people are like, no, absolutely not.
All right, let's bring on our guest.
Hell yeah.
Here. This guy, I have never actually talked to like this. Oh, I gotta fix this camera.
Oh God,
I messed this all up.
Make the box
yeah, see, this is what happens when you're live. Sam, Sam, how's it going, man? Appreciate you.
First off, I appreciate you guys being patient with me. Today, things got moved around in a way, and I hate pushing people around. So,
Oh my God, stop. We know how it goes.
We're live, and I honestly, after being live today, I realized how all over the place this live feed has been. I don't know if you feel that way.
Oh, I feel like that in a great way, though.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, Sam, I've been nervous about saying your last name forever because I get worried about saying last name.
You're not the first one.
Esfandiari.
I'm gonna give that a solid 9.5 out of 10.
Whoa!
Basically as perfect as you can get it. So well done.
Whoa, what can you say?
Yeah, say it one more time.
Esfandiari.
Esfandiari.
There you go.
Esfandiari. Yeah.
He is a co-host of the Light Years podcast. I don't listen religiously because I'm not a Warriors fan, but I've listened enough, and I appreciate
really
the job
good.
you and Andy do. You guys do a great job on your podcast, and we're like, we got to have Sam on because if there's one person who knows about Mark Jackson and Mike Brown, it would be Sam. Sam, first things first. When you heard that Mark Jackson was a finalist for the Kings job, what did you think?
Deep sigh. It's, I'm going to try to be more measured on it. The way Mark Jackson's tenure ended with the Warriors, like it leads to kind of negativity and not positive thoughts among Warrior fans and people, but it would be unfair to kind of look at the totality of everything he did with the Warriors and just judge it by that last turbulent month. And then, things obviously get better when Steve Kerr comes in, right?
Yeah. It's strange because it seems like most of the players liked him.
Correct.
Lacob has made it clear, especially, right after that, there were 200 people who didn't like him. And there's just been so many stories about him, the call-in stuff that came out. Where are you with all that stuff? How much do you think of that is actually accurate versus how much of this is just him getting shit on? Where do you weigh in on that?
I give it the rule of 70-30, mostly accurate, maybe some embellishments or, just kind of getting your story out there framed the way you want it afterwards. What is objectively true is the key players, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and Andre Iguodala, they adored him. They did not want him to get fired. They would have ran through a wall for him. They credited him with kind of instilling the defensive identity. Other players may have a different perspective on him. Harrison Barnes, for example, had a very rough year the year before Mark Jackson got let go. It might have been more that he never really adjusted to coming off of the bench. They started Andre Iguodala, and Barnes he just kind of ended up being an afterthought on that team. I think that's probably a big contributing reason to why the Warriors moved on from him, where they're like, hey, this guy's too talented to be moving into bust territory, which is kind of what was going on there. They couldn't figure out how to make it work with him. And Andre Iguodala, obviously Steve Kerr came in, convinced Andre Iguodala to come off the bench, and it worked a lot better that way. Yeah.
How important do you think that is when players to the caliber of a Steph Curry, of a Draymond Green, talk about Mark Jackson at such a high level? Should we be listening because of how this league has evolved into this relationship-based league? You want your players, especially star players, to like your coach. What's your feel on that?
I think you're right, because I think it's easy to look at his faults and not look at the fact that he accomplished the hardest part of coaching, which is getting buy-in from your most important players. There's stuff he did with the offense, basically it was just kind of Steph Curry running a high pick and roll every possession. And, with some of the rotations, like I mentioned, Harrison Barnes kind of really struggled. They couldn't find a role for him. That obviously don't reflect well on Mark Jackson. But at the end of the day, when he took over, Steph Curry was often injured and people weren't really sure where his career was going. Klay Thompson was a rookie. No one knew who he was. He wasn't a top 5 pick. He was, I think, 11th overall. So it wasn't like he was a bad player or anything, but I don't think anyone kind of projected him to be what he ended up becoming. And then obviously Draymond Green was a second rounder, and all those players, they did develop under him. They did develop the defensive identity, which is kind of a staple of the team. And he was important to the foundation of what they've obviously built, which is, kind of a dynasty in some way
Yeah,
or another.
must be nice, Sam. Must be nice. Why do you think he was able to connect with some of the play? Like, why do you think like Steph and Clay and Draymond, Andre, like connected with him so much?
I mean, he's a player's coach. He has a lot of cachet from his playing days. Everyone knows him from TV. He's not someone who's going to be afraid of confronting a player. Like, he's not. You see it with some coaches where they kind of walk on eggshells around players because they're afraid they're going to bruise their ego, or, maybe our relationship isn't strong enough and I don't need him going to the GM and that sort of stuff. Like, Mark Jackson's very confident in himself, and I think players respond to that. Like, he's the quintessential players coach in that capacity.
You had that front row seat watching Mark Jackson as a coach on the floor. What were some of your views of him as a coach? I know he had some offensive issues too. Like, how did you see that play out?
I think that stuff for me showed itself more in like year 2, year 3. Like, they weren't evolving. Like the first year he took over was the year that Steph had the constant ankle stuff, and I think he only played like 25 games. So it was a tank year. It was the year in which they got Harrison Barnes in the draft. They were kind of, the same old Warriors of the previous Chris Cohan regime, where it's just like, everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And then that second year is when they made their first playoff run, upset the Denver Nuggets. Mark Jackson could do no wrong in anyone's eyes. They went from 25 wins to 48 wins, obviously go to the second round, lose to the Spurs, who are, one of the best teams in the NBA. But it's like, at that point, it was like he had overachieved. And then it was after that point when they started having expectations that it became apparent that, okay, maybe not the most innovative offensive mind. Not that, now that everyone is treating Steph Curry like a star and giving him, guarding him with 2 players, guarding him from 30 feet out, like, what are they going to do to free him up? And it was just kind of like, well, just let Steph take his man one-on-one. Like I said, they bring in Andre Iguodala, huge talent upgrade to the roster. Okay, but then Harrison Barnes goes to the bench and he's kind of a lost cause. Like, you're kind of just throwing away a player who had an amazing rookie year. So that's kind of how I see it. Like, he was really good for building the foundation of the team, and then they just didn't evolve off of that.
I think one of, my concerns with him, obviously there's so much that comes with Mark Jackson,
right?
Is just like, he hasn't been in it.
He's been around it.
Like, you hear something like with Mike Brown, who we'll talk about in a second. Mike Brown took some time off, but he was spending time with the Spurs organization, kind of popping in and out, getting that experience. And he's been with Kerr since 2016. Well, Mark's just done games, and it's like, does he still have relationships? Could he build like a legitimate coaching staff? How has he evolved as a coach? Like, those to me are some of my concerns.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually so when you asked me to come on and talk about Mark Jackson, I was just kind of thinking about it in my head. I'm like, man, he hasn't coached in 8 years. And last time he coached, the Warriors were taking 23s a game, and everyone's like, whoa, that's way too many, like, it's like it. And then I start thinking about just like how fast the game changes. Right. So like, part of me is wondering who he would get. I actually have very little concern with his ability to connect with the players, like with like De'Aaron Fox or Domantas Sabonis or whoever the Kings have in their roster next year. But I'm wondering what they would do, like assistant coaching wise. Obviously, you'd want to bring in maybe some younger coach or just some coaches who've been in the league in the last 2 years and like kind of know some of kind of like the tactical shifts that have happened.
Yeah, that's the thing with this whole Mark Jackson situation, is that I'm like, this King squad hasn't been in the postseason in 16 years, in 16 seasons, right? And so you look, why go with the guy that's been out of it for so long? So then I guess my question to you, if you see other coaching opportunities around the league, do you think Mark Jackson deserves another opportunity in the NBA?
Yes and no. Like, I think there's there's only 30 jobs. So it's like, does he deserve an opportunity? Yeah. I mean, he did take a team to the playoffs, and he got fired when they won 51 games. I mean, it's not like they did underachieve, as we saw when Steve Kerr came in. Like, clearly there was another level to the roster that could be unlocked. So like he underachieved, but he wasn't a bad coach per se. But on the other hand, there's a lot of good coaches. I don't know. Is he one of the 30 best coaching candidates? I can't really say that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
You know,
tough.
Sam,
Listen,
when
I can
you've had-
see you guys aren't inspired by the names being.
I mean, it's tough, man. I mean, you've seen a revolving door of coaches. I mean, I was going over earlier. It's not just since 06. Like the two longest tenured coaches in Kings history. By the way, two former Warriors guys. Gary St. Jean, 5 years, and Adelman, 8. Other than that, it's been a revolving door. You know, like it's crazy.
Would Luke be third longest for like 3 seasons?
Oh.
I mean, he got into season 3. I think Jaeger got 3 seasons. But yeah, I mean, it's
a lot around that three mark.
So I mean,
2.5. Yeah,
I've been trying to be really fair with Mark Jackson
Yep.
because I think it's complicated. I think you can't ignore how players feel, but there's also this other stuff. You know, the comments that he has allegedly made, like. It's so. I just want him to figure it out, Sam. I mean, you've been a Warriors fan forever. You guys had bleak years too, where you missed the playoffs. What 18 of 19? I don't know. It's
that's
tough.
that's on a different note. That's like the weirdest thing for me because like the Warriors up until doing the math in my head, up until like my late 20s, the greatest Warriors moment in my life was We Believe.
Yeah.
That was, and basically like, I don't know, that and like Run TMC when I was 4 years old and I don't remember are like the only times they were even relevant. Right. So, so I have the whole, like, you know, like what Kings fans are experiencing. That's largely how I grew up a Warriors fan. Now I see all these younger Warrior fans who like, oh yeah, when I was 10 years old, I saw Steph Curry, and like, they have no recollection that like this franchise was not like, you know, like some exceptionalist, like, oh, we're the best type of thing previously. And it's just, it's bizarre for me.
Well, and that's the weird thing too, because being in here in Sacramento, it's like you have 16-year-olds that don't understand winning basketball, have never seen a winning team in their city. They are wearing Steph Curry jerseys and Giannis Antetokounmpo jerseys, right? Because they want to wear winning jerseys, and it's understandable. And that's why, like, we sit here after talking about this for an hour with a lot of the Kings fans before you got on, just really about Mark Jackson. And we're trying to stay so open to it because, Sam, this is most likely when you don't want something in Kingsland, that's usually where the direction it goes. And especially with more and more reports coming out today about Vivek Ranadive wanting Mark Jackson, that's been reported, and that obviously the GM wants more of Mike Brown. So it's tough because who's going to get the ultimate say? We're hoping it's Monte McNair, but that's why I want to talk a little bit more about Mike Brown now on a positive note, which is so sad that this is more of a positive direction because you just look at the way that this guy has evolved his coaching strategy, philosophy over the years. How instrumental has he been to this Warriors squad right now, just as an assistant coach?
I mean, he's probably the most well-liked person on the coaching side. Like, everyone just, I've yet to find someone who has a negative thing to say about him. Like, he's adored. Players like him, coaches like him, the, you know, support staff who's always around the team, just positive. Like, I feel like he's just had a perennial smile on his face since he came to the Warriors. Like, just kind of like, you know, and maybe that comes from, you know, having coached in some worse stops, that he's like, just, you know, kind of like the problems we have here are small fries relative to stuff I've seen around the league. But I saw that also. I saw was it Jake Fisher of Bleacher Report reported it. Could not get two more diametrically opposed candidates between Mark Jackson and Mike Brown. Cause like Mark Jackson was very kind of like foxhole mentality. Like, he kicked Jerry West out of practice. Very like that old school, like, the locker room is my space. Stay out of here, front office. Stay out of here, everyone else. And like, I'm not afraid to push buttons and make people uncomfortable. And, you know, it's my show. Mike Brown is more kind of like the way the Warriors are, which is a more collective, like streamlined, with the front office, taking into account what like maybe the analytic department has to say about what they should be doing, empowering and assistants, and just kind of like a more of a new school approach to kind of how the organization should run. So I guess on the most basic basketball level, it's like just two completely different philosophies, right?
Yeah, I mean that's a big one, right? And like I know Jackson in interviews has denied the Jerry West story, but there's been enough noise about that it's like, and I even heard like Jim Barnett wasn't even allowed to go to practices, and he had been allowed to as a broadcaster for years, of course, former player. Like
yeah, that one is 100% true. Well, both of those. So
see that divisiveness that we talked about is like that's like the last thing any any team would
but
need,
a losing
specifically
culture.
Sacramento, and the Kings need that the vibes of building something, and that's where both of us have been like, well, I think Mike Brown makes the most sense out of these two candidates for sure. And the other thing too, it seems like, I mean, we know Mike is super detailed, right? He's obsessive and organized. I don't get that same vibe from Mark Jackson. Am I wrong?
His tenure at the Warriors would not be described as such. Like I said, players coach, his strongest attribute was the relationships. And I would say the first year the Warriors made the playoffs under Mark Jackson, where like everyone's like coach of the year. Wow. What a great job they did. Like his lead assistant was Mike Malone. They had a very good staff there. So it was a lot of, kind of.
Yeah, we had Mike Malone for a minute. That was fun.
I feel like you guys remember him.
The best coach in Sacramento's most recent history.
Yeah. He was here for a year and a couple games for sure.
So all of that's to say, and I do get the impression he didn't love the idea that like he got zero credit for like. It's kind of, it's not like, it doesn't feel great to be like, oh yeah, you motivate the players, but this is the guy who's drawing, up the diagrams and everything like that. So that was kind of the source of the tension. Mike Malone obviously got hired right after that as the Kings coach, and Mark Jackson didn't really replace him. He just kind of promoted someone internally who maybe the front office wanted him to go out and get another Mike Malone type, right? Like go get like the most, the best assistant you can, like the Warriors right now, like they went out and they felt like they needed to refresh the coaching staff because it was like too much of like all the same guys who'd been there forever. And they go and get Kenny Atkinson just to get like a fresh, and obviously Kenny's like head coach. He's been a successful head coach. They wanted Mark Jackson to do something like that, and he opposed it. And that was kind of the beginning of the Lake Up Mark Jackson feud.
I do have some questions about this too, just for the time frame. Mm-hmm. If I remember right, so I believe Malone interviewed for that Warriors job that same year Mark Jackson did.
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay. And so, that dynamic
may
have been a little weird too, right? I don't know that Mark and Michael had like some tight relationship prior.
I believe Mark Jackson had been coached by Mike Malone's dad, though.
Brendan Malone, yeah.
Yeah, so there was a relationship there. Like, I don't get the impression that they're like, best friends or anything like that. Yeah. But like, at that point, Mike Malone had never been a head coach. He was starting to become one of those assistants that like got his name in interviews. But I don't think it was actually as contentious as that, because, he hadn't been a head coach. He obviously ended up becoming one, and he's a very successful one now.
And then you bring up the assistants, because that's another layer with Jackson that we should talk about, is like obviously with Scalabrine and Ehrman. Like, what can you refresh our memories on the friction
back the
there?
Greatest hits.
I'm bringing up all these tough times for you, but this is what we've got to dive deep on this. We got to figure out like.
So all this stuff happened the year after their first playoff run. So year one was the Steph Curry injury year where they tanked for Harrison Barnes. Year two, who are these guys? Cinderella story, upset the Denver Nuggets. And then year three, it all falls apart. They have expectations. They don't live up to them. And we start getting the leaks. So let's see. Ehrman recorded him in a coach's meeting illegally, like cell phone recorder, like something you'd see like in a mafia movie type of situation. So he ended up getting fired for that because you really just don't have a choice as an organization, even if he had his reasons, and he did end up getting immediately rehired by the Celtics right after that. So it clearly didn't kill his career. Yeah. Let's just say there was a disagreement in terms of the way in which he felt like Mark Jackson was working as a head coach. And that was also kind of why Scalabrine got let go. Scalabrine was more of the traditional arguing with his boss in public type of thing, the type of thing that like leads anyone to kind of being on a short leash and kind of out the door. I believe Scalabrine, now you're testing my memory, I believe he ended up getting reassigned to the G League team.
Yeah.
You know, kind of like we're not going to fire you, but we're going to kind of, you can go work 90 miles down the road in Santa Cruz. And then, you know, we'll just like casually not renew you in the off season type of situation. So,
all right. Last thing on Jackson,
Okay.
and then we'll go back to Brown for a second. What's the biggest reason why you think Mark Jackson has not had another coaching gig since that Warriors 51 win season?
Multiple ones. The guy coming in right after you, winning 67 games with the same roster, is not a good look. But I really think it's more the interpersonal stuff the last year. Like that's the stuff that kind of goes with you, right? Not being well liked internally, feuding with the front office. We didn't even mention the extortion case.
On draft night, came out on draft night when they drafted Harrison Barnes.
Shout out Joe Lacob and the Warriors keeping that relatively out of the media. Yeah. I can't imagine that happening 10 years later. I feel like that would have there's just no way. I guess that was like right before social media exploded. So yeah. But yeah, like all that sort of stuff is probably a main driving force behind it.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
So with Mike Brown,
less extortion.
Less extortion
good,
for sure.
Good.
What has he done with this defense this year to put the Warriors defense in a much better position?
So I actually think they've been much more creative defensively this year than in the past. Like obviously during kind of the years in which they were going to the finals, you know, from 2015 to 2019, they were heavily defined by that like small ball, switch everything defensive lineup, which like, you know, let's be honest, no one's ever going to have like that much talent at the same time, probably ever again. They had like 4 all NBA caliber defensive wings who could guard 4 positions. So it's a little easier to play that way. Now they have a roster, which is again, very talented, but not as, let's just say not as versatile as having like prime Andre Iguodala, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Kevin Durant. They've been much more creative in terms of mixing different defensive coverages in there. You'll see them go between switching pick and rolls to drop coverage if they have Looney in there or Bielitsa, you know, guys who maybe you don't want to put on an island 25 feet from the hoop. They'll switch in some zone coverages here or there to try to mess with the other team. I want to say it was the end of the Denver Nuggets game. They went with a kind of a box and one on Jokic.
Yes.
And we're using kind of Wiggins as kind of weak side rim protection there in the small ball lineup. I mean, you saw what they closed the Memphis game with. I'm not sure if Gary Payton II was the point guard or the center. Like they had 4 guys who are they had 4 guys who are guards on the floor and Andrew Wiggins, who, I mean, he's rebounding the ball really well, but I'm not sure people would define him as like a particularly physical wing historically. So I think they've been really creative with the different ways they've used personnel.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And that it's been so fun to watch. And even sometimes when I miss something, I'll go to an Anthony Slater piece the next day and be like, oh yeah, that did happen. And that is the why. And it's really, really fun to watch. But with Mike Brown, I feel like one of the things that the knock on him is, oh, he had star players here. He had star players here, and he's around star players again. Do you think that's something that's going to come into play when he's getting a head coaching job? Or do you think that's even something like, do you think he can work around that?
I think you probably work around it. I think it depends on the personality of the star, though. Like so he was kind of the fall guy for those Cleveland Cavaliers teams during LeBron's first tenure there. I think in retrospect, like, come on, what was that roster peaked out, right? Like they won 60 plus games, not a lot of great talent outside of LeBron.
Mo Williams.
Yeah, exactly. Like a big, 40-year-old Big Z. It wasn't the most dynamic roster. And then he had the Lakers situation, which like another team where he, I guess, did not get along well with like Dwight and Kobe, and got fired after 5 games or something ridiculous, like a year and 5 games.
Yeah.
Something ridiculous like that. I don't know if that was true either, but those sort of things, you start developing a rep that way. It's not the case with the Warriors. And maybe it's the personalities of the players, but like Draymond, who's probably the most demonstrative personality on the team, has no issue with Mike Brown. He likes him. They get along very well. Like, obviously, Steph's not traditionally been the guy to feud with his coaches. So that relationship's been good. I guess it depends on the players would be my biggest thing, but like, I see no reason why he wouldn't, have success with players who are bought in.
Do you feel like too with Mike Brown, maybe I don't know, like after being fired by the Cavs after signing a 5-year contract and, getting...
we forgot the second Cavs tenure.
Yes, getting let go when he has, like in the past, that maybe seeing an organization like the Sacramento Kings, who also have that type of reputation, that might actually push away Mike Brown and he would be patient to wait for the right head coaching situation?
Maybe, but I mean, he hasn't pulled his name yet. I would have thought if that was the case, he would have, like, how Mike D'Antoni was named for the Kings job and then he, kind of pulled his name out pretty quickly there. Like, that's kind of, if Mike Brown felt that way, I assume he would have done something better, like the polite, like, I'm happy where I am type of thing.
Yeah.
All right. So Jackson or Brown? It's Brown, right? Is that it? This is where we're at. And by the way, I know we're just dismissing Steve Clifford. I kind of like Steve Clifford, but I don't know. My mindset, I'm kind of on board with a Mike Brown, Steve Clifford associate head coach.
Of course we're on board with that. Yes.
I'd lean that way as well. I just think it's lower risk. I can see, if I squint, I could see the logic to why you want like Mark Jackson, because you want someone to quote unquote breathe life into the team. It's just like, for how long? Based on what we know, like you might get that one bump year and then things go negatively. And like, if I'm the Sacramento Kings, I'm looking for something that's like sustainable with less drama, probably as like the goal, right?
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah. It must be fun, like breaking down like playoff games and like
real basketball.
Let's talk about matchups and
a box and one.
We're talking coaching changes. Hey, did they tank enough to get a good draft pick? Like,
did they play with effort or heart last night?
Man, what do you see in this young guy? You think they'll play what's his name? Now you're gonna remember.
Yeah, we're miserable, Sam.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Are you guys pivoting to draft coverage yet? Are we there?
And we're full on coaching coverage.
Yeah.
We are hitting up everyone about every candidate. We're talking to like third cousins and stuff at this point. So, but Sam, seriously, thanks so much for giving us your perspective. Keep up the great work. I know you're working with playback too. We talked about playback. We're going to be doing a playback watch party at some point. We're working out the
you guys have to. It's a lot of fun. So I'm actually doing one tonight. So if you guys want to hop in just to see how it works, I'll tweet out the link so you can find it easily. But so Andy and I, my co-host, are hosting a watch party for the Warriors Grizzlies tonight. It's pretty easy to sign up. You click in, you put your email, you authenticate your account. That's the big step of this. Prove that you subscribe to Comcast, YouTube TV, Hulu, whatever it is. Just prove that you actually get ESPN or TNT, whatever it's on.
Yeah.
And then we watch along. It's a lot of fun.
You can literally watch the game and chat along, and
it's like excuse me. It's like Twitch for live sports, for lack of a better analogy. It's like you can interact with people. Some of the people throw some really funny questions into the chat. We'll bring people on stage if we trust them enough.
Dangerous.
It's going to be a good time. Getting Scott Foster tonight. I'm sure that won't be controversial after game one.
Scott Foster games. I love them. Dude, Sam, keep up the great work, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good actually talking to you face to face for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely appreciate it. Do it again sometimes, guys.
Appreciate it. Thanks
Bye,
so
Sam.
much. That was good stuff right there. Good to get some perspective on the Golden State Warriors and Mark Jackson and Mike Brown. I hope you guys found that educational a bit.
That was it was educational. Even for us, you know, like I keep telling myself, even after that, if it sways me one way, I still tell myself, be open to it.
Yeah.
Be open to it. But it's great getting all that information.
Also, he and Andy do a great job with the Light Years
Yes.
podcast. Like if you're a basketball nerd and you just like listening to other teams' coverage, I know it's hard. There's so many podcasts out there. If you want the scoop on the Warriors, they do a great balanced job. They're not homers. I mean, as you could tell, Sam knows what he's talking about.
They break it down.
So, let's talk more with the people.
Okay.
For a few more minutes. Okay. We'll take it up to D-Lo and Casey. How about that? You want to do that?
Sure.
I just have to tinkle. As I said yesterday, I'm not going to say it.
Just go. Okay, no, and you didn't say that yesterday. You said a different word. Whatever. Wow. Yeah, interesting, you guys. Some of you are really funny. I'm not reading some of your comments. Let's see. Yeah. All right. Don't laugh at Deuce. Atkinson to the Hornets. RP is saying, yeah, it's, you guys, we've been talking about this for almost 2 hours now. Even though we talk about it for like 2 hours every single day. And then after the 2 hours, Deuce and I still have long ass conversations about this situation going on. We're obsessed a little bit unhealthily, but at the same time, it's just like we said, this is probably one of the most compelling, historic coaching searches that is going on with the finalists in place because of who they are. Just like Sam was saying with us, how different they are as people, as coaches. Those are your finalists, and Steve Clifford, but those are your finalists.
All right, let's go next to Twitter Spaces. Let's check in with Megaloo.
Oh, yeah.
What's up, Megaloo? Welcome into Morning Chat. Unmute yourself, or do I have you muted? Oh, there she is. What's up, Megaloo?
Oh. Megaloo. Just leave it on until she
She'll
hops
try
on in.
again.
Yeah.
She'll try again. We'll get to her.
Oh.
Yeah. Did we have any feedback on what Sam had to say in the chat?
And Lizzie asks, will the coach have any say in the draft? They should. I mean,
I think coaches to a certain extent have they have input.
Yeah.
But, you got to remember with the front offices, at least the really good ones, they have scouts and they have a ton of investment. They've been doing the homework all year long, watching the college games, hopefully going to see college games. They're bouncing around.
Yep.
Like, they're the experts. Now,
supposed to be the experts.
coach will watch some film and see what's going on. Like,
how this fits. Oh, I like that guy. This makes sense for our culture, our squad. Absolutely. I love that Sim says Mike Brown is the safest pick. I mean, he's I think the best pick, right? If you look at this situation from where we all stand on the outside of these interviews, yes, we all feel that same way about Mike Brown. It's almost too good to be true. We're like,
wow.
Yeah, no, we're like talking to Sam more about Mike Brown and just what kind of human he is. I'm like, run away. Like, go do something better because you don't know what's going to happen here. And I'm not like,
no, do not say that.
No, I'm serious though, because you just Deuce track record. I'm a track record person.
That's fine. But at some point, and I understand like, hey, it's been bad. It's always going to be bad. That mindset. It doesn't have to be. Like, Morgan, you're the hopeful one, and you're acting like, run away. It's like, no. Like, embrace the challenge. Be the person who changes things in Sacramento.
It's so true.
Come on.
I've been that person in workplaces where I'm like, I'm going to be that person that makes this change, that changes this entire department and everything like this. And I feel so passionate. I put all the work in and love in. And there's still those obstacles, those things that hold you back, that push you away from achieving those goals. And it makes me sad for all the good humans, the quality humans out there. And Mike Brown is such a quality human. I just hope if it is here in Sacramento that he gets treated the way that he deserves to be treated.
On our Twitch chat, E. John says, I look forward to when the Kings get to the playoffs. You guys are going to be so happy. You know, I was thinking about this. I was thinking about how happy people would be initially, but the way social media is, after the first year, it's going to be like insane. We're going to be at the point, hey, they won 50 games. This is a joke. They need to win 60 and be like, it'll be insane. The rise is fun, but once you get there, that's when expectations come and it gets crazy. But bring it on, please.
Please, I'd rather be talking about that in defensive schemes and so much more. I hate my life. Oh.
We have an update from BV50. Oh. Mark Jackson had on a purple tie Sunday. That's significant at this hour.
Huge. I can't believe it.
Stephen Brown says Mike Brown is known for having OCD. He's extremely detailed. Yeah, and he's talked about how detailed he is, but he's also talked about being around Kerr has helped him loosen up and not be so rigid and understand that not everything has to go exactly as planned. Yeah. But I love the fact that he is detail oriented, that he is obsessed with learning about the game.
Has standards.
There's so many pluses to him. There is more pros to Mike Brown than cons.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even there were reports on or podcasts or whatever there was about Mike Brown talking about the way, or Sam Amick actually told us this too, the way that he picks out his suits when coaches were still wearing suits, and he would line it up and have it all prepared out for the week. And he would have a lookbook at times to see what pieces went with what colors and everything. Sounds just like my dream coach, like my dream human to be here in Sacramento. You know how many times I've wanted to go through my closet and make a lookbook and be that organized with all my crap? I want to be.
I don't care.
I can't wait to organize my junk drawer. I'm excited.
Mike Brown could be topless on the sideline. I don't care as long as they're winning games.
Yeah, but my point is just to his OCD and his organizational skills and how he goes about things.
I think it breaks down pretty simple. Mike Brown, he was around Bernie Bickerstaff. He's been around Greg Popovich, Rick Carlisle, Steve Kerr, great players. He has so much corporate knowledge of this game, of this league. They understand he's been in the thick of things. It's, to me, a no-brainer. I'm not saying he's going to be the next Hall of Fame coach. I just think
with the finalists at play, this is the no-brainer.
It makes a lot of sense to me.
And I don't even feel like I think some people are underwhelmed by Mike Brown's, by all the finalists, and then being like, yeah, Mike Brown's in that category of being underwhelming. And I don't think that's true. I just think people have a certain perspective on Mike Brown and what he's done as a coach on just his win-loss columns and having stars and all these other things, rather than diving deep into who he is as a human, how he controls situations, how he's helped this Warriors defense and the way that they've changed different schemes throughout games and make those in-game adjustments. Those are so important.
Let's put a wrap on the audio portion of this podcast and switch over to the YouTube Twitch exclusive.
Cool.
Thanks so much for listening. We love you, but we gots to go.
You all have a wonderful rest of your day. Zam.
Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo. They tell you what they know. Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo. The podcast that you know. Deuce and Mo.
Okay, YouTube and Twitch exclusive time.
Now we going crazy. 11:48 a.m.
It's YouTube Twitch exclusive, or the D'Lo and Casey pre-show.
I love that.
As we lead into Damian and Kenny on ESPN 1320. Someone asked me on our Discord, like, hey, Deuce, like, is it intentional that you guys aren't on at the same time as D'Lo and Casey? I'm like, yeah, it kind of is.
Yeah,
like, now, if there's breaking news at 12:45, like we'll be on. But we collaborate with D'Lo and Casey. We respect what they do. They do an awesome show, and like, if we can go at 10 a.m., they go at noon, that's awesome. I think we can build each other up. That's what this business should be about.
Can I get a hell yeah?
Hell yeah! The both times you've done that, I've not been ready.
It's disappointing.
Give me a hell yeah.
Thank you.
Ooh, let's go to Twitter Spaces and check in with Jordan. Jordan is connecting. We'll wait for him to connect.
What's up, Jordan? I'm connecting.
Ivan wants to know, did Mike Brown ever play the game at an NBA level? No, he did not. I believe he was a guy that played like community college ball and then like grinded his way to play college ball at, was it San Diego? Yeah, San Diego. He started at Mesa Community College. God, the basketball mind is just amazing sometimes.
JUCO ball.
And then he spent 2 seasons at San Diego. He's been an assistant in the league since 1997. Got a young start. By the way, like I don't think playing the game at the NBA level is you don't have to do that to be a successful head coach.
You'd be surprised what you can learn and actually do without playing
Greg
the game
Popovich is
at
pretty
that
good.
level. Right.
Michael Malone's pretty good.
Right.
Did Michael Malone play a couple years in the league?
And hopefully one day we're talking about women
Yeah.
coaching in this league at
Yes.
a head coaching level.
Let's see here. I'm gonna scroll through the chat. Jordan's still connecting. Sorry, man.
Yeah.
RP says Mike Brown apparently the only guy who can grow from his failures. RP, like I don't know if you're directing that at us or the chat, but I don't think. I mean, I listen to D'Lo and Casey; they've been fair too, but I think we've been very fair with Mark Jackson. So I'm not even gonna take that. Like, yes, we have acknowledged Mark Jackson could evolve, but there are questions too, and it's fair to ask questions. That's why we're trying to cover all aspects of it. I think we've been very fair to Mark Jackson.
Effing fair. And I pride myself on being fair,
Absolutely.
especially in this last week, and I will not take that.
King Fan 333 has a great question.
What?
Does Mike Brown want the job?
Yeah, that is a great question, and that's something we did ask Sam too.
We did. I would say this. I think he does. I think him wanting a
head coaching job.
Yes, I think he wants a job too. But to meet with the Kings, to advance to the finalist round, and to meet with the Kings, whether that's in Sacramento or San Francisco, is significant. Now, maybe he has a second round in-person interview, and the vibes aren't there. Maybe he wants a 5-year deal, and they don't want to give him a 5-year deal. Like,
yeah.
When you get to that level, I don't know. I mean, I think he wants to coach again, and that's why he's interviewing. But could they close a deal? Is he comfortable with the things he hears in the one-on-one? Is he asking tough questions? Because he's going to be meeting with Vivek Ranadive. Is he asking Vivek some tough questions? Right? Yes, absolutely.
I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I feel like if anything from someone like Mike Brown, who could possibly be happier in the role that he is in as an assistant coach and can understand that he is going to be looked on as a head coach in this league over time, he might be challenging more and asking more questions, where someone like Mark Jackson is getting asked more questions, if that makes sense, because he's not even a coach in this league right now.
Mike Switzer, Mike Brown is 82-92 without LeBron James on the roster. Well, that's pretty impressive to only be 10 games below 500 without one of the greatest players of all time. Yes, you need talent to win. Like it's like, look around the league. You need talent to win. So I don't see why we hold that against him. Like we hold it against him that he coached LeBron James and had 60-win seasons with a roster that wasn't like crazy. It's not like LeBron had D Wade and Bosh on the Cavs. The second best player at times, Mo Williams. You had Varejao for a minute.
Look how many people.
Ilgauskas. Boobie Gibson had a good run, but let's not act like those Cavs teams were loaded.
And let's look at how many people judge so many different coaches on their past coaching jobs, right? Like you look at, I think Jason Kidd is a great example, and talk about someone with lots of controversy surrounding him, and then finally finds a home with the Mavericks where he's making progress and making this team better as of right now.
Hey, Jordan's here.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Now we can. What's up, Jordan? Hey.
Jordan.
We heard you, and then we got you now, man. What's up?
Sorry about that. I'm at work, so this probably isn't great.
Ooh, nice.
No, just some thoughts about this coaching search really quick before I hop off. So my biggest concern when they first announced these candidates was that they were targeting a lot of people early on. They were talking about how the Kings were targeting people with coaching experience. So, the Steve Clifford, Mike Brown, Mark Jackson, Mike D'Antoni, is they were looking at guys who have like inherent shelf life, which kind of
bugs me, especially when you put them next to like Will Hardy and Darvin Ham and some younger coaches who you kind of didn't know about, but more exciting names. So as we've kind of whittled it down to these final three, like Mike Brown, I don't really put in that group because he kind of was dealt some weird hands in some of his later stops in his second round in Cleveland and with the Lakers. But the Mark Jackson thing is just really confusing to me. Why do you think Monte McNair would like tie his future with the Kings to Mark Jackson?
Well, I don't think he has tied his future to him. I mean, he's obviously a finalist, right? But
I mean, as far as Wood, like if he is seriously being considered, which I kind of doubted early on.
I mean, I don't know. My theory is this. Mark Jackson, when he was with Golden State, and we just covered this with our guest who did a great job breaking all this down. Mark Jackson came to the Warriors in a weird time, right? It was this Nelly had, dysfunction, right? They had a ton of it. Steph Curry was this young player who was hurt all the time. They didn't really have an identity. Mark Jackson came to town. They had that weird 1 year where it was kind of a rebuild tank year because Curry was still hurt. But he helped establish an identity, established a culture, and connected with Curry, Draymond, and Clay. And he got the most out of that team and was able to turn a franchise that had been in the doldrums for a long time into something that was fun again. And he set that foundation and culture. And I think the Kings are likely looking at Jackson as a guy that, hey, we need a culture. We need an identity. Can he help give our guys the confidence they need to get through that and get that opportunity to actually play meaningful games? I don't know. I guess that's what they're looking at.
Yeah, and then, so on that front, I think the thing that's not really making a ton of sense to me is if what's been reported, what James Hammond talked about, is that if Ron Adive honestly believed that Mike Malone was the brains behind the Warriors, why, like, these weird reports about him being, Mark Jackson being the favorite is like that's what's kind of crazy to me and something that's not adding up.
Yeah, I don't know. See, and that's why I don't, when you start having those reports where it's like, what you just mentioned, the Malone thing and now Vivek liking him, I don't know what to believe on that. Yeah, it doesn't add up, right? So I don't know. It's, we're not in the interviews. I would love to be in these interviews. As Morgan said earlier, if we were all fly on the wall and watch these interviews,
make it a reality show.
I would love to know what Mark Jackson had to say, or Mike Brown, or what didn't Darvin Ham do to impress, or maybe Darvin Ham didn't want the job. I don't know. It's always interesting in Kingsland.
Yeah,
and
No, I was just because I'm trying to be rational about this. I'm trying not to freak out until I have to. But,
yeah, and you know what, dude? Like, honestly, even if they hire Mike Brown, cool.
Which I like Mike Brown.
And that's fine.
I like the guy. I think he'd be great.
Here's what I've always said. It's not about winning headlines. It's about winning games. You win headlines when you win games. I don't like just because they make a splashy trade, or they hire the coach that like George Karl was a splashy hire. It made headlines. It was a train wreck for a multitude of reasons. So, even if they hire Jackson, if they hire Mike Brown, whatever, like let's see what they do on the court, because that's what matters. Go win games.
Yeah, and so for me, like if you're deciding between Mike Brown and Mark Jackson, like, and then you go with Mark Jackson, like you would have to think the gap, at least what they believe, would be significant enough to want to hire Mark Jackson and bring everything that comes with it.
Yeah.
Like if Mike Brown is the coach that we all think he is, like he seems to be like a great coach and has some great experience with the Warriors since he last coached the Cavs, like the gap had better be significant, at least in their eyes.
Yeah.
For you to even want to even consider that.
And I think too, I mean, it's also like, we don't know how these interviews are going, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe they've just been absolutely blown away by Mark Jackson, what he's learned. He's come in with a vision and a plan, and he's talked about the things he did wrong and what he wants to change. And, I don't know. I'd be fascinated to know all that stuff. So,
right. All right.
I don't
gotta
know
hop
that
off.
we helped
Thanks, guys.
you, but yeah, we appreciate you hanging out, man.
Sounds good.
All right,
Thanks.
there's Jordan. All right.
Buckle up, everyone.
Go check out ESPN 1320. D-Lo and Casey are on right now, getting ready to start their show for 4 hours, and I'm guessing they're going to talk a little bit about the Kings coaching search, some NBA topics too. We appreciate all those hanging out with us today. Make sure to spread the word, hit the thumbs up button, all that stuff. We love you guys so much. But we gots to go.
You all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for being here. You're badass. See ya.